to another edition of Meet the Metapreneur. Today, we are heading out to UK to have a conversation with Emma Hames, who is the founder of Cassette Monkeys. Welcome to the show, Emma.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure, and I've been following you on LinkedIn. I love what you're doing, so I thought it will be a good idea to have you on our show. So if I may request you, Emma, to please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Emma. My background is actually in science and teaching, but my first loves have always been the arts. I've always loved music growing up. I was that kid in the playground that always had a headphones on and always daydreamed about playing music, writing music, performing music, and painting as well has also been a really big part of my life. I was born in the UK, but I've moved around a little bit. I lived in France for a while, which I kind of consider in some ways more my home. And I got into Web3 kind of about a year and a half ago, I think, and was just blown away by the possibilities, the community, the innovation. And I'm really excited about how that can transcend all these industries from science, education, the arts, psychology, mental health, tech. It's just a fascinating time to be involved with this space.
Oh, great. And I was just curious to know how and why you decided on the name of your organization, Cassette Monkeys. What's the thought process that went behind it?
Yeah, great question. So as I say, I've always been a music lover, but there's something about cassette tapes that I feel a magnetism towards, and I don't know if it's the nostalgia. I love the fact that they're kind of imperfect and glitchy in themselves, and I think it's the perfect symbolism for humans. I sort of miss, as much as I love digital assets and streaming and the great quality we get from that, I miss the tangible sort of holding a vinyl record or a cassette tape or a CD in your hand and actually playing it. So that's the cassette side of things. And then Monkeys, I just feel they're a great kind of fun way to cartoonize ourselves, I suppose, and deal with very real world issues in a fun, playful way. So Cassette Monkeys just felt like a sort of imaginative, creative way to deal with some of the issues that we're hoping to deal with.
Interesting. So if you may elaborate a little more on, what is the objective of Cassette Monkeys? What's the vision? What have you already achieved? And what are the activities that you are planning in the future?
Yeah, so our mission essentially is to help people help themselves, I think is probably the most succinct way to sum it up. Really, we're a mental health project more than anything else. Health sovereignty, informed consent, these are very important to us. And to me personally, the whole kind of scenario and project was set up through my own health issues about 10 years ago when I had a coronavirus, which I wasn't aware of at the time. Wasn't COVID, but was, I guess, a sister version of that. And I went a year without being able to breathe properly. I was teacher training at the time and got through my postgrad degree somehow, but really was struggling to breathe by the end of it. The weird thing was that doctors couldn't find anything wrong and told me that it was just in my head and it was just stress. So that was very surreal. And in the end, I got the opportunity to move to France. And I thought, well, if it's just stress, the south of France is going to be the perfect cure and remedy for all of this. Great food, great wine, great sunshine. That was my remedy. But of course, it didn't quite happen that way. And about 3 months into moving there back in 2013, I think, doctors there found my lung capacity to be at 60%. And I developed a kind of asthma off the back of this virus. So fast forward a little bit later, I was put on an anti-anxiety medication due to the effects that had occurred from a year of not breathing properly, reduced oxygen. And we now know that COVID can cause anxiety in the brain due to the chemical shifts. So I had very severe anxiety. I was having panic attacks for the first time in my life. The sun looked like it was going to explode. Somebody closing a door sounded like a bomb going off, and it was terrifying. So obviously I trusted in the doctors, as we all do. And they told me to take this medication, and that I needed it, essentially. So straight away, I kind of felt a light go off in my brain. I didn't want to be on it. I felt like I was drugged up, but the doctors refused to let me come off it. So I ended up staying on it for 4 years, and they actually increased my dosage to the highest dose eventually. And I was just struggling more and more. So I was having tachycardic episodes. I remember watching some of my students at an architectural school doing a presentation, and my heart was just going at crazy speeds, and I didn't understand why. And then it was happening when I was going for drinks with friends or dinner or that kind of thing. So in 2016, I decided to come back to the UK and try and find the answers. I spoke a little bit of French, but not enough to really get through the medical stuff. I didn't want to risk not knowing. So I came back and I found out that I should have been given the drug for 1 week maximum when I came back to the UK. And the same thing happened. I had 2 years of doctors telling me that nothing was wrong, that the drug wouldn't have harmed me in any way. But I had decided that I was going to cold turkey the drug, and I felt like it was doing wrong. So I came off it. And then in 2019, a paramedic told me that I was going through something called benzodiazepine withdrawal, which is this class of drug that's very common, very dangerous for a lot of people. And I then saw a doctor, a new doctor, who said, we've essentially poisoned you, but there's nothing we can do about it. So by that time, I'd had 4 years, had 35 ambulances in 4 years. I had up to 40 to 60 symptoms every day. And I went from being kind of quite adventurous and outgoing, and outgoing in the sense of wanting to live life, and to not being able to really leave the flat or home or wherever I was staying for about 4 years. So I was mostly isolated and housebound during that time. And during that time, music was the thing that I really credit with kind of enabling me to survive, because there was no support outside of that. And so I decided to make a documentary film to raise awareness of what was going on, help support other people. Sadly, a lot of people are committing suicide because of these drugs. We know that 1 in 3 Americans alone are on this class of drugs. And we've just found out recently that 10 to 15% will end up with long-term injury from these medications, which is roughly 10 million people a year. And doctors, as evident by my own experience, doctors just don't know how to adequately deal with this by and large. And they're handing out these drugs that are very, very dangerous. And people's lives are being turned upside down and ruined. So I wanted to kind of use my experience to help other people. And the narrative of the documentary, it's called Playing with Life, the soundtrack. The narrative is basically following the story of someone being housebound and feeling like life was sort of over, to writing the songs for the film, putting a band together, and hopefully going on a world tour, and sort of along the theme of the comeback is stronger than the setback, if you like, and raising awareness of what it means to be truly healthy and happy in this modern fast food everything world that we live in, and that applies to medications. So that's kind of the film. And then Cassette Monkeys really just became a brand for community building around the film. And it's begun to be a really exciting brand and startup in its own right, where we want to equip people with the tools to be able to make decisions around their health, their happiness, their well-being, and ultimately create the lives that they want despite the circumstances.
No, that's an amazing story right there. And I just want to ask you next, I mean, how many lives do you think you've already touched? How big is your community? And what's the outreach program that you have to help people, who are in this space? So yeah, you want to say something on that?
Yeah, another great question. So it's funny. So we're very much at the beginning stages of our community outreach. We have a very small but incredible community at the moment. We haven't really done much public facing outreach work at this point. We've been sort of developing our team, developing the website, developing the strategy. However, we've just launched our own podcast series called #PressPlay. And that's one of the sort of core things that we want to do, to be able to share the messages and discussions and facilitate curiosity around some of these issues. We also are beginning some soundboarding sessions where people can come and kind of soundboard their ideas, their challenges. At the moment, that's for musicians, but we're hoping to open that up further. And then beginning some Twitter spaces where we can have those live Q&As and discussions around. So our tagline is "Creativity is the new healing." So really, we're a spectrum with various team members on board with Cassette Monkeys who have different experiences in different areas, from science to music to entrepreneurship to tech to health and well-being. So we just really want to start being more public facing and engaging with the community. In terms of who we've helped so far, that's a really interesting question, because despite what I've just said, it's kind of been mind-blowing for me that through a lot of the networking chats that I've done over the past few months, there's been a lot of calls where I've talked with people and they've said, "Oh, that's not Xanax, is it? That's not Valium. That's another thing." And I said, "That's exactly what it is." And through these networking conversations have actually, I guess, begun helping people become more aware of what they're dealing with. So by default and by accident to some degree, it's already started happening in that sense.
No, that's great. And what I want to offer you from my side is that we've got a few digital assets in the Web3 space. We are building a community called Meta Shapers. So I do invite you to join this community, and also invite your community members to join us, because we have a lot of like-minded people who are, we are also, by the way, having a webinar on 6th July, which is called Mindfulness in the Metaverse. And we will be addressing some of these issues. And I do again recommend that you attend this webinar. And at every conceivable opportunity, I want to be committed in helping you reach a larger audience, because what you're doing is incredible. I don't know too many people who are working in this space in a very selfless manner. But in some ways, it echoes the spirit of Web3, which is community building and collaboration. So hats off to you. I really wish you all the best in your mission. And I will be happy, like I said, to offer you this platform and everything else that we own in terms of a network on LinkedIn. Happy to reshare your stories. And so my last bit that I ask all my speakers is there any particular advice you would like to give to young entrepreneurs in terms of entering the Web3 space? Are there certain do's and don'ts that come to your mind that you would like to share?
I think my advice that immediately came to mind, which isn't specific to Web3, but is relevant, is go with your gut intuition. Because, and maybe that is relevant to Web3 as well, because with Web3, it's so new and it's so innovative that I think a lot of people feel like they know the way things should be done. And they'll give advice based on their experiences or what they've seen, but it's not necessarily the best thing for that person or that project. And in all honesty, from my life experience, when going back to the drugs, for example, these prescription medicines, I knew intuitively that it was wrong, that I did not want it. But of course, I listened to the older adults around me telling me it was safe. And it's the same with everything. When I look back on my life and I think about the things that kind of generally went well, it tended to be the things where I just felt on a gut level that it was the right thing. And likewise, when my gut was kind of screaming out, "No, don't do this," things kind of went awry. So gut intuition, keep your ears open for advice and take it on board, but always at the end of the day, go with what you feel is right. Surround yourself with people that believe in what you're doing, that encourage you. Energy is very important. You want to have people that are positive with what you're doing and that build you up and that don't make you feel the opposite. So I think that, yeah, I think they're kind of my two main bits of advice.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I just want to top it up by saying, be open-hearted and always stay open-minded, right? Because that really works. So thank you, Emma, for sharing your story. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for spending this time with me. And I'm hoping our audience will love your story and share it in turn to their communities. So what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we have a Twitter, which is just at Cassette Monkeys. My personal Twitter, link to that, in case anyone can't find it, is at mjadehaynes. And then our website is cassette-monkeys.com.
Super. So thank you once again. All the best and see you on the other side.
Thank you. And thank you for hosting this.
Absolutely.
Have a good day.
Cheers. Bye.